Welcome to a football show, Monday edition. Apologies for the late start today. That is all the Tennessee Titans' fault. That is Paul Kuharsky. I am Braden Gall. We are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Thank you to all of you who showed up and came out over the weekend, Thursday and Saturday. Huge success. Much fun was had. And thank you, Paul, and the rest of the guys that came out to talk Titans with everybody. Appreciate you guys being there. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm well. I had a great time. I got a cool Sinkers hat. I meant to bring it in here to wear it momentarily, but I left it in my car as I was racing to get in here after some traffic, some Ravenwood High School traffic on my way back from Titans press conference and riding a little bit. So sorry for that. Great hat. Appreciate it very much.
Well, first of all, we raised, I think, over $3,000.
Wow.
All of you raised over $3,000 on 2 nights, on Thursday night and on Saturday night. All of it for the Our Kids Foundation here in Middle Tennessee. So just want to say thank you. I don't have, there's too many of you to put every single name on the show, but just know if I saw you and you were there, thank you so much for being there. It means a lot to me and to the rest of the guys that work on this platform, and to all the folks that were there, to the guys at Sinkers, to the guys at Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Thank all of you for your support as well. I think we're up to I want to say we're at around over $6,000 in 3 years raised for Our Kids with just this event alone. So it keeps changing every year. And it really does mean a lot to me, to you, Paul, for me, that you, Paul, and Nick and everybody else were there to kind of hang out and talk with the fans about all this great stuff. And so we're going to do a lot today. We heard from the Titans brass, the decision makers today. Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker answered some questions about the entirety of the draft class. So we're going to do that today. You're going to hear a bunch of clips from them on the receivers, on the quarterback room, on their overall strategy. I want to ask you, Paul, what you think of did they stick to best available? Did they stray from that at all and go into team need? What do you think of their overall strategy, their decision makings? Where did they find value? We get to step back and look at the entire class for the first time, PK. I know Nick and I talked on Friday sort of about Cam and that pick. But now we get a chance to sort of analyze the entire draft class. So we got a lot of stuff to do today on the pod. I want to start with one, and if you want to jump into the comments, please do so. Coach Wills, Trevor, good to see you guys. Appreciate all of you jumping in the comments. Thumbs up, notifications turned on the YouTube page. If you want to ask questions, that's how you can get involved. I want to do one thing on Cam. I know we've talked so much about Cam. I want to move on quickly from this, but I do want to ask I want to point out one thing that's kind of been hitting me over the last couple of days, and it's sort of my fault to some degree for not having brought this up more forcefully. I think I've made plenty of jokes, Paul, with you and with other folks about what I think of Mario Cristobal as a head coach at Miami. Just in general, I think his end-game management, I think some of his strategic decisions, I think they're lacking in a big way, and I think he's not a particularly great development and in-game coach for Miami. I think he's a great recruiter. I think he lures in talent in a really impressive way, but I think he should be delegating a lot of the other football stuff when it comes to in the game. And so I just sort of wanted to hold myself accountable and say, look, if if one of the things Brian Callahan likes about Cam Ward and the team is that he shows progress and that he grows and develops every step of the way, and that he's he's a good learner and he takes to coaching quickly, then I think it needs to be pointed out that he didn't probably get a whole lot of that at Miami, specifically in terms of his overall long-term development. And that is another reason to be very excited about Cam Ward. If you think all of a sudden a professional gets his hands on Cam Ward's skills, and all of a sudden, could he unlock a lot of that stuff that he was very productive at Miami, but probably was not getting on a day-in, day-out practice game kind of basis. So I just wanted to point that out. It's hit me over the last couple of days. I don't think we've talked about it much here. But if you are anti-Mario Cristobal like I am and pro-Cam Ward, you kind of have to think, well, he didn't get a lot of help there. He probably is going to get a lot better help now. And I think that's a reason to be excited if you're looking for more reasons to be excited.
And without that help, and you know a lot more about that than I do, he made some great progress at Miami anyway. So that would be encouraging.
And one of the things we did love about, everybody loves about sort of who he is as a person, the competitive nature, sort of the drive, the chip on the shoulder, a lot of stuff that makes a lot of players great. He was reaching out to every single player as they were getting selected. Now, to be fair, Will Levis did this also, but he's doing this sort of like in real time in like a very intense way. He's, tweeting about stuff. I'm just curious, Borgonzi talked a little bit about it. I'm just curious if that means anything to you. from I'm adaptable. I can kind of work my way into the locker room. I don't know if that means anything to you.
I mean, it's a nice showing. I think people get a little bit too excited about it. Like, yeah, look at this guy. He's a born leader right out of the gate. I mean, he's excited too, like you are, and he wants to get going. And so he's, working the Titans for cell phone numbers and getting in touch with guys right away. So it shows, a nice enthusiasm right out of the gate. Is it going to make a difference in his quality of leadership that he touched a guy's cell phone immediately, as opposed to 24 hours later? No.
I think my takeaway on that kind of stuff is when you package it with the whole picture of little comments here on video games, or here's a tweet here, or it feels to me that he's got a high attention to detail element.
Well, it gets the overall
he gets it,
thing, right? And I mean, people were commenting on his suit, and that's probably not for you or I to talk about draft day fashion, but he was certainly a more muted guy in how he appeared and carried himself at the draft than some of his colleagues and some people who've been in his place before. Now, that might be a big read in, but if you're piecing together little things, like you said, that kind of combine to create an overall impression, I'll take it.
Yeah, excellent suit. I thought very classy, classic. I think that's the one thing I would give advice to. Not that I know anything about fashion, but my advice to young people around this moment is that this is going to be like this forever. Like this picture of you is going to be out there forever. Maybe don't go super risky. Just keep it classy, keep it timeless. I thought he did a good job of that. And I think it's who he is. He's just not Travis Hunter. He's not a pink suit. That's not his thing. It's not how he rolls. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to talk about the whole class here. And we're going to start with, this was Chad Brinker on Monday today, sort of about the overall strategy of what a Titans player looks like and how they kind of entered the draft class.
Yeah, big, fast, tough football players who love winning more than anything else. I mean, that's a Titan. I really want, I think over time, as you see how this unfolds, you might be able to draft him for us ahead of time, because you're going to see like, oh, that looks like a Titan. There's definitely a DNA we're looking for in our players, and that's I think everybody wants that, but it's hard to find. You got to do a lot of work, and hopefully, those guys that we're bringing in here will prove us right.
Jimmy's head also making an appearance in the videos today, probably as well.
It's hard if you sit on the left side to avoid Jimmy's head.
It is. So I look, you and I and the group, we chatted a little bit about how much do you love ball, as how important is that actually. We talked about that on Saturday night with all of you guys. I think being a captain or cultural fit or personality, or like sometimes you can go too far one direction or the other. I think in theory, it's a really nice idea for them to have sort of a Titan way or a Titan player or a Titan brand inside the locker room. I do think all these guys are incredibly intelligent. I think most of them are very well spoken. They all sort of do strike me as those culture guys. I don't know, at the start of a draft and development type of regime, I think that's okay. I think that makes sense. Eventually, you're going to need elite standout weapons, and sometimes that doesn't always line up. What'd you make of the actual description of the strategy?
Well, big, fast, tough. It does strike me a little bit. I think during the Vrabel era, you heard big, fast, but really tough, smart was were the two biggest things, right? I think Vrabel thought he could do a lot with tough and smart. And I think we're going to see more of an emphasis on big and fast with this regime. Now, I still think, and we'll work into this, that, outside of Cam Ward, we're going to set him aside. Did they get plug and play guys who are going to make this team instantly better? In a lot of situations, no. Femi Aladejo, has only played 10 games at edge. There's a lot of development to go on there. Development is a big word. Winston, probably a pretty good player, but coming off a year where he only played 3 games and was hurt, and he's not plug and play because Amani Hooker and Xavier Woods are the starters there, and neither one of them is getting displaced. Shamari DK, no developmental holes in him necessarily. Helm needs to be developed as a blocker. Ayomanor is, had 2 very solid seasons, but had knee issues before that. Not a full college career by any means. Jackson Slater is a developmental guy. That's fine. That's what you need on the offensive line behind Zeitler. Marcus Harris, I think is fine. Kalel Mullings is a guy who played more linebacker than running back in college. When you run through that list, there is a lot of developmental stuff, and they said so on the front end. Well, if you're a team, I don't have the New York Giants draft in front of me, and the Giants are probably on the other end of this in terms of desperation for immediate impact to save jobs, and I don't want the Titans to go crazy with that to save jobs. But I don't think you're seeing guys who are plug and play and improve this team immediately. And that's why off of this press conference, I wrote, Amy Adams Strunk, they say, is on board with patience and discipline right now. But if she doesn't like what's going on late November, early December, January, she's the one that could screw this whole thing up, because she's the one that could pull the plug on the coaching staff, make a firing for the 4th year in a row, and set back all the patience and development that you have, and set a restart thing here if she doesn't like the progress. And it's easy to say you're fine with it now. Are you fine with it when the results aren't as progressing as quickly as you like, and when people are whispering in your ear, well, you had the number 1 pick. Why is this quarterback not better sooner? Why are these receivers not doing more for him sooner? Where's the pass rush out of this second rounder, et cetera, et cetera?
This part goes without saying for me as an analysis of the entire class, and that is that they are all in on Cam Ward, and that the clock is now ticking on the folks that are tied to Cam Ward, which is these 2 guys, Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, and of course Brian Callahan. And not only do they go out and they invest in the offensive line in the free agency era, knowing that they were probably going to do this. They decide on this, and then they add 2 receivers, they add a tight end, they add a running back. So they are adding pieces to help their quarterback, and then they go out and sign Restrepo as well, which I don't really want to talk about because he's getting outsized coverage in this moment. But it's clear that everything that they're doing is indicating that they're all in on Cam Ward, and that's totally what you need to be. But it does mean that everyone is now tied together. Whatever happens is that they're all tied together, and that's okay. That's what you do when you draft. It's funny you mentioned the Giants, because it's like I was trying to think, like, how many coaches draft a quarterback in the top 5 and then get a chance to do it again. And Dayball has somehow figured out a way to survive the Daniel Jones mistake and move on. They got, by the way, Abdul Carter, Jackson Dart, Darius Alexander, Cam Scadaboo, Marcus Embo. I think they've got like 3 automatic starters right away. I don't know if Dart's good enough. He needs to develop, but I mean, Scadaboo could start right away. Alexander could start. Carter could start. And Embo, actually, as a 5th rounder, could probably.
Yeah, that's a nice sounding draft. I don't know if they drafting. It doesn't sound like drafting out of desperation, but they're certainly not drafting guys who haven't played their position for very long on that list, right?
So we'll get to all these different these pieces, but do you see the strategy of how they went about it? Like you it's risk reward for Cam Ward. You decided to take him. You're all in on him. You did your diligence. You made that decision. You had to do that first. You turned down a lot of trades, or at least one big one to move back to 3, maybe even further. We don't know. They decide not to pick at 35, which had a lot of high-quality edge rushers and receivers that were available there. Also, a variety of other good players at other positions. They pass on all those guys to add a 3rd-round pick. They move back to 52. They end up taking Oladeja, who I think is a project, who has lots of skill and is an intangibles guy as much as he is a skills guy, but has a lot of development to go. As a part of that deal, they end up with a safety who I actually think is of tremendous value. I think they said today that he's a top early 2nd-round pick if he's healthy. I think that's right. I think he is in the Nick Emamori area of the draft if he is fully healthy and plays the entire season for Penn State. So I think they get some value there. DK is a little bit of a reach in terms of going out and getting just speed, but you do it in the 4th round. I think Helm was value where he was drafted. I think Ayomanor was value where he was drafted. And then the other 3 are, after 160, it's kind of just who you like. So it's hard to really put a value on those guys. But do you see the logic and the strategy and sort of sticking to either best available, maybe reaching for position of need? Like, does it make sense at least? We can agree to disagree on the players, or we'll find out if they work or not. But what'd you make of the act? Do you see what they're thinking logically?
I do. I think I think the issue is at 82, right? I mean, it's out there pretty widely amongst many of us that they really wanted to get up from 82. They really wanted to get up from 82 to get Noel.
Jalen Noel, yeah.
Yeah. And they couldn't get up for him. So then you're doing best player available. Well, I mean, I don't have anything against Kevin Winston, but Kevin Winston there aren't a lot of snaps for Kevin Winston. And if you're playing big nickel, you can get him on the field, but big nickel is a limited package. How often are you going to go to big nickel? Sometimes, but you also have little nickel, which you like with Roger McCreary. And so, you've got great insurance there if and when Hooker is hurt, which Hooker gets hurt a lot for sure. Xavier Woods looks like a pretty good free agent addition. I don't think he's knocking him out. And so Winston, to me, is more a pick for next year. And I don't think they have the luxury to be picking for next year right now, given the holes that are in their lineup. So you could have had another edge there. I think Josiah Stewart went shortly after that. You could have taken a better running back than Mullings there, though that's not a big need to me either. But I think when you move back to 52 and 82, I would have liked bigger impact players than Oladejo and Winston, bigger year one impact players.
I think that's the issue. I can see the strategy behind drafting those two guys from a skill set standpoint, and I think Winston's the better player today than Oladejo. So I'm a big fan of Kevin Winston. I think it's a smart pick at a position of need where they got value. So it's hard to argue, like, just strategically, if you see a guy get drafted behind where you really think he is because of some extenuating circumstances, which we can talk about, the injury, at a position of need, it's hard to argue that he wasn't the best available player and a player that they needed. So it's a smart pick. But I
need for safety as your third thing is not very high.
Well, but I think your point is right that when you look at the roster and you look at their particular situations, in Oladejo's case, a little bit of development time needed. We did get a chance to, and I see Stoney in the comments. How you doing, man? We did get a chance to watch a lot of Oladejo against a lot of Josh Connerleys and Urseries at Senior Bowl, and he is an impressive athlete. He needs to eat some of Stoney Keeley's pork chops, but he is an impressive athlete. But he's not a guy that you would have said, oh, that's way behind where his value was. They overpaid for him, so they're betting on the development. Right now it's Arden Key and Draymond Jones, and right now it's Woods and Hooker. And so right now these are bench players in theory for this season. And while I see the logic in developing a pass rusher and getting Winston to me is a far more proven commodity who's going to be a starting player. And I don't know when that's going to happen, but it might not be this year for either of them.
So I think Oladejo is a starting player because he's a run player. So to me, you can get Key off the field for run downs, which isn't his strength, but the more important downs for an edge or is third down or clear cut pass rush downs. Is he one of your two best guys on pass rush downs out of the gate? I'm guessing probably not. I'm guessing you probably go Jones and Key right now. Now, how quickly can he overtake one of them? I don't. Maybe you're developing him, through off season and through camp, and he is that on opening day. I'd hope he would be, but maybe not. And then you're waiting. And we had this conversation. Nick Suss brought up a good point at our get together, which wasn't a big off the record part of it. If you can get a guy who's a 6 in his first year and is going to be an 8 the next 3 years. Well, if you can get an 8 for 4 years, that's what you'd prefer. And that's my complaint.
Even if he ends up being a 9 or a 10, even in his final 4th or 5th year or whatever. So you overpay in the beginning, you get more value on the back end, but why not just get the good value in the first 3 years? Jason,
and I'm not saying I know who that is. I'm just saying I think there were more better options.
Jason says 4 top 100 players on their plan to get 12 in 3 years. And here's partly why I will grade the draft strategy overall as very sound and solid. And I think it's a good draft class. I don't know how much impact all these guys are going to have right away. And I think that's an important question when you're drafting a quarterback and your head coach might be on the clock here. I do think you could argue that it's 5. I think you could argue that Gunnar Helm and Ayomanor are top 100 players based on most consensus big boards. And so if you're telling me you got 5 top 100 players, ballpark, or 4, I think that's the job. And they clearly agree with the value of these players. And so whether or not we love, Oladejo in year 1 or year 3 or whatever, Gunnar Helm needs to learn how to develop inline blocking skills. Frankly, I don't think that's as valuable in the NFL as it used to be. And I think he's a really good asset split out wide in the passing game. He's a big yak guy, big target. He's more athletic, I think, than Chig and Wiley with the size to run after the catch. He's not going to be a star, but he's going to be a help to Cam Ward right away. And I think he was underdrafted, meaning they got value with that player. So I do think on the whole, they also hit all the positions that I would say were a priority for me. I thought they would get a safety and a corner and a running back and a tight end, an offensive lineman, an edge receiver, and Cam Ward. They hit how they did it. We can disagree on, but I think they hit all the points that that I felt going in were the things they should do.
Go to Space City here. His comment. This is representative of some of my concerns. He says, being a former linebacker, Oladejo might be able to drop back in coverage. I don't care. They need an edge who can go get the quarterback. I don't give a shit if he can drop in coverage. I don't want my outside linebacker to drop in coverage. They need a guy who can go get the fucking quarterback, period. A pass rusher. If he can drop in coverage, that's some huge bonus on 15 plays a year. That's not some bonus fee. Oh, this guy can drop in coverage. Terrific. They can have coverage players to be in coverage.
I agree. Daniel, good to see you, man. I hope, by the way, Daniel is, I don't know if number 2 has arrived or not yet, but hopefully you and mom are feeling great and the baby's doing well. So congratulations to you. Mullings is going to play both ways, linebacker and running back, and the Titans haven't answered Travis Hunter. I find that to be hilarious. I do want to bring this up.
He will
though.
never play linebacker.
No, I know. He's kidding. QC Hawk says Mullings is RB3, and the one thing you need from RB3 is special teams. As a former linebacker, I bet you he's decent on special teams.
Oh, he played a lot of special teams.
That I completely.
He's
and
a very
actually,
good special teams player.
And I think there's a lot of good special teams players in this draft. That's not what you do, to your point, primarily. But if you want to get some guys that increase that part of your game, I agree. Here, so I wasn't going to start with Mullings, but I just want to mention this because I think Khalil Mullings is really good. Nick and I both mentioned him. He is this guy gave one of the best. He gave a master class in on the spot, crisis PR management after the Ohio State game. He was immediately interviewed after they beat Ohio State and they got in that big fight. You remember? I don't know if you remember that big fight after that game, but he's the first one with the microphone in his face while there's the melee happening, which is sort of a really tricky situation to put yourselves in. He gives a very good answer about and I recommend everybody go look it up. I think I tweeted it back in December. It's like, man, this is not the way. This is not good for the game. This is not the way you want to end a great rivalry like this. He gives a really good political answer, and then he goes, it just shows you that Ohio State's got to learn how to lose, and it's a great balance of play the right tone with politically correct ways to say it, and then take a little shot at your rival that you just beat for the 3rd straight year. It's just really savvy. He's a really smart dude. He's very physical. I think he's going to be a very good player for this team. So I love that pick. I think that's great value at the end, and it speaks to how good this running back class is to get really good talent in that spot at that position. Later in the draft.
Go ahead.
No, I was done.
I was just going to say, also to me, the rebuilding the culture talk is a little bit too big. I don't see pick 136, 167, 183, 188 having a huge role in rebuilding team's culture. I mean, that they fit into it nicely, that's fine. But let's not pretend Gunnar Helm talked about having a huge role in rebuilding Texas's broken culture, and that's good, and that he comes in ambitious that he could help do the same here. That's fine. The guys are going to help rebuild the culture, are going to be on the field a ton. Gunnar Helm, even if he's their number 1 tight end, they're going to be 3 wide more often than not. And Cam Ward's the chief culture rebuilder here. Now, other guy, other guys are going to have to fall in line. But also, rebuilding the culture isn't all about having all A character players. You need a couple assholes mixed into the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're not ready for that yet, but at a time that comes.
I mean, first of all, every conversation we have about everything starts and ends with Cam Ward. Culture, personality, whatever. But I do think, Oladejo and Winston were both captains. I think that's a positive. It's not a negative in any way. It's not the reason you draft them. It's not the reason you draft them. But if you have two players, all things considered equally, and you can get a guy who was respected enough to be a captain on his team, especially even while injured in Winston's case, those are the guys who are going to be on your second and third rounder are going to be on the field a lot more, hopefully, and should have a bigger impact on sort of becoming a leader and growing into a leader. I really do think Winston's a much better pick than he's getting credit for right now. Assuming he's healthy, which is another question we can ask, because the last time they took a player with an ACL problem,
But how much are you presuming he plays?
I honestly, at his best, and I know this is going to sound a little crazy, but I think at his best, he is a better player than the two safeties they currently have starting. Eventually. When does that happen? I don't know. Yeah,
that's what I'm asking. How much does he play as a rookie?
I know we got a long time to set expectations for all these guys, but I think if he starts a handful of games but plays snaps in every game, I think that's okay. I think that's okay for a third-round safety. Don't you think?
Well, it's okay for a third-round safety because of what he's coming into. But a third-round edge or a third-round wide receiver or third-round, a lot of other things would have played more.
Okay. So overall, I'm not asking you. I mean, I guess you can give me a letter grade. I mean, I think they've been graded out by everyone around the internet as somewhere in the A range, low A, high B. I think that's about right. I think they did their job. I think they hit their marks. They got the positions. They stayed true to their board by and large. And I think they did a pretty good job. And I want to go ahead, PK.
I don't think anybody was giving them an A after Friday night. And I think there's too much score adjusting for fourth, fifth,
too much value on day three.
Basing too much on late round picks who are not coming in and playing nearly as much or being nearly as influential as people tend to think. I mean, I think it's fine. I don't think it's, overwhelmingly good.
All right. So I want to talk about the receivers real fast. Here is Borgonzi on the receivers that they picked up this weekend.
Yes. You're looking at the value of the board for these guys, and where we took Tim and Elic at that point. We were looking for young guys with some speed, and they both fit that. Chim's a guy that has return ability as well. He's done punt returns. He's done kick returns. Elic's a big body receiver, ex-receiver, that's strong, physical at the catch point. He gives a good catch radius for the quarterback. So those are some of the things that we're looking at with those two guys when we took them.
Do you think about?
So they go back to back here. It's clear that DK was the guy high on their board because of the speed and the return. They said today he's going to be thrown in there at returning both kick and punt. He's a guy who's kind of he's been just a professional-ish type of player, not a superstar, but he's just kind of been productive and done his job and gotten better every year, both at Wisconsin and then at Florida. I think Ayomanor is a guy that I've really liked, so obviously I'm pleased with the value there. They trade up to get him and don't actually cost themselves a pick. I think it's sort of like looking at Oladejo and Winston and saying, I think one of those two guys is probably going to be pretty good. I don't know about the other one. I'm not sure which one. I think that's the way you can look at this is you take two shots at it with fourth-round value. You get a guy who's a speed guy who can give you some return ability. You've got a guy who's a big catch radius who's going to help make up for poor throws in critical spots on third down over the middle for Cam Ward and Ayomanor. One of those guys is probably going to be okay. Nothing great, but okay. And then if you package that with Gunnar Helm in the middle there's a lot more weapons considering they added Tyler Lockett the day before the first round for their new quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're throwing a lot at the wide receiver position, which is good. They needed that. Hopefully, at least 2 out of 3 are significant contributors with Lockett. Lockett has some limitations as an older guy now. He's going to bring some leadership to that room, which they lack for sure, being a good influence on these two guys. I was surprised that DK went as high as he did, but when you come out
Agreed.
with both of them, I don't really care where they came, right? With Ayomanor and DK. I would have been satisfied with the two of them. I don't know. I haven't seen that much of DK. But for a fast guy, he doesn't look like smoothly fast to me. He looks like a little bit choppy fast to me. I don't necessarily care if he's getting fast. If he's fast and getting to the places he needs to be, doesn't necessarily matter how it looks. I hope he solves the punt and kick return issues. This team has been poisoned to guys who allegedly come in as potential solutions to that. Hopefully he ends that. And so, you got to feel a lot better about the weaponry, but again, like they didn't, and I'm not expecting them to find a number one or an outright number two where they're drafting these guys.
Could they be 3 and 4 long term?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
And somebody said earlier that DK the pick kind of came out of nowhere. It did come out of nowhere for me because of the value, but then as I kind of went back and remember watching him at Wisconsin and remember watching him at Florida, I do agree that it just feels like this cultural foundational Titans kind of deal. Like, I know he was drafted for speed, but they picked a speed guy who's also sort of like a polished professional who doesn't do one thing in a great way, but can do a little bit of everything in a very sound way. And I think that's sort of what they're getting at when they say like, oh, we want, smart, tough, big, fast players or whatever. So
T-Good's saying the look on my face tells them I hate both wide receivers. I don't. I like
that's just how he looks, guys.
I like Ayomanor. I didn't really know much about DK. I'll confess. So, but Ayomanor, I was into with a lot of guys in that range. The game he had against Travis Hunter is hard to. I know all of it didn't come against Travis Hunter, but a good share of it came against Travis Hunter, and you've got to respect that. I know it wasn't a great offense for Stanford there too. And Stoney was telling a story the other day about the effort he put forth in some of these, really
blocking,
meaningless games on a play where there was no chance his guy was going to go do anything, and the effort he put forth in blocking a guy. So you'd like to hear that. He was great on all of these guys had good personalities on the conference call. So I'm excited about the quotability of all of them. We got the Khalil Mullings and thought, all right, well, here comes our dud. And somebody mentioned what you said about Ohio State needing to learn how to lose and forecasting. No, this isn't going to be bad. And he was the best probably of everybody. So
he's really, he is like all like locker room glue guy. But it's so the other thing we need to make sure we say here, and because I agree with you that after the first day, we're saying, all right, if Cam Ward's the guy and you're all in on Cam Ward, A+, right? You got your guy. You changed the position in your franchise forever. After day 2, there was sort of like all right, not sure what we're doing here. Feels like a little bit of a reach for one of these guys. You get value, but he's hurt. So that's a question for the other one. And then you come back, and because you have so many picks and so many of them were sort of roughly better than value, right? There were some value in almost all of them. Because you add, 6 players, I think most people look at that and go, that's an excellent haul. I think it's important to note that as we talked about, this organization has done better than average at finding David Long and, Chig Okonkwo and Amani Hooker in the 4th and 5th rounds. Most of these guys are not going to be starters. If they get 2 starters out of this, that is a hugely successful draft with these 6 picks. So we got to kind of tamp down expectations a bit. And
certainly year 1 expectations for them. That's again why I would have liked to have seen some different stuff at the top. But now you wait and see, clean slate it and see what they can do. Also, it's a big coaching staff test. They're talking about developmental players, developmental traits. Got to see this coaching staff go and do the developing. That's who's charged with doing the developing. And this coaching staff, didn't have a great year last year. They didn't have great guys to develop necessarily. But I don't think there was a lot of evidence of great development of many guys.
Speaking of development and scheme fit, Borgonzi was asked today about getting to know the coaching staff because he's kind of the new face, the new guy in the room, right? Relative to Chad Brinker and to Brian Callahan, he's the new one. And so, he was kind of asked, how does he view, the evaluation of players relative to what the coaching staff wants them to do. And this was his answer sort of about how he learned and kind of got to know the staff and what they wanted from a scheme fit standpoint and how that impacted his decisions.
So, the first thing when I got in here, when we were meeting with the college scouts, is, actually during the lunch break, I would meet with each position group every day, and that went on for about 2 weeks. And really just to go over the scheme, the characteristics, and the traits that they look for in each player. Because you have to have a vision for the player, how they're going to fit into the scheme, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams. We went through that. And as we went through the evaluation of these players, that's a big part of it, discussing these players, where they need to elevate and get better in their game. So, working hand in hand with the coaching staff is a big part of this process, just to know what plays in our offense, defense, and special teams, and then what do we have to do to develop these guys moving forward.
PK, is it fair to say that almost all the things that have happened and the way that the organization has communicated, Amy included, that this team is not trying to raise expectations in 2025 at all? This is about trying to build something longer term, right?
Well, I mean, their in-house expectations for this year might be bigger than they're letting on, but they certainly learned a big lesson from Rand Carthon last year, saying checked every box. And, he didn't put a record on it or anything, but he was way too upbeat about what they did, and it bit him in the ass in a big way. And they're being very cautious of that. I think that was at play with them not making veteran signees available even, which is going overboard, quite frankly. We'll see those guys, some of them later this week, finally. But what is that, 6 weeks at least since they were signed? But they didn't want that to seem like a celebration, which is ridiculous to introduce a guy and act and mistake that for people feeling like they were celebrating them. So they went too far that direction. But yeah, they are not going to be saying anything like they checked every box.
Suss asked them about Will Levis being traded. Was there any interest? Was there any effort to do that? The answer was no. From the Titans, I think the value of Will Levis will not be higher than right around week 2 or 3 of camp, when some quarterbacks have been hurt and there's a chance that you could get a 6 or a 5 or a 7 for him. I just don't think his value is going to be higher than at that point. And if he has one good preseason game, that could be all it takes for another team to come in and ask for him. So here was Borgonzi quickly to start this conversation about the competition that's going to happen in the quarterback room.
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions with Brian about that, and I think as we head into the off season here, like I said, it's going to be a competition, and these guys are going to get equal amount of reps right at the beginning, and they'll separate themselves here as we head into training camp. But the idea here is to have competition in the room, and Brian and his staff, as we go through the off season, get into training camp, I'm sure the reps will change at some point, when people separate themselves.
The reps should change very quickly. It's a waste of reps if you're not giving Cam Ward everything he can handle. And, last week in the pre-draft press conference, he said, Will Levis is a guy who plays quarterback who's on our team. Now he's a guy that maybe is competing with Cam Ward. It's nonsense.
So it was, we didn't know officially that it was telegraphing the Cam Ward pick at the time. We thought it was, in theory, to go sign the guys that they've signed. It's even more apparent now that one of them probably gets cut and one of them might end up beating out Will Levis and be the backup, but that this is Cam Ward's show from the beginning. There's no reason that Cam Ward, this isn't Jordan Love. This isn't, Patrick Mahomes. This is a guy who needs to go out there and play right away, right?
Tim Boyle can't be on the roster. Look, it's going to be Will Levis or Brandon Allen. As backup, I don't see why you would have a third. Maybe Tim Boyle's on your practice squad if practice squad rules still allow you to have, older guys on it. The guy's not done anything at any level, including, maybe he won in high school. He didn't do anything in college. Hasn't done anything in the pros. Must be a nice guy to have around in terms of personality and upbeatness and all of that. He's not a productive NFL quarterback at any level.
There's just no. I mean, the competition in the quarterback room thing is a nice line at a press conference, but honestly, every time this team is on a practice field in any capacity, Cam Ward should be getting as many reps as possible. That's it, right?
Yeah, unless he's tired or sore or whatever. Give him a day off when you need. Give him a practice period less when he needs. Outside of that, I mean, if there's a time at which you feel like he's getting overloaded, then you slow things down. Otherwise, press the accelerator.
So I want to kind of quickly ask you about the players around Cam Ward and the team now that Callahan has to work with. I think it's fair to say Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett are your 1 and 2. I think you go Van Jefferson, Ayomanor, DK Oliver probably as your next 4. Correct? I don't know if that's how you feel.
Sounds right. Lockett being your 2 is a little bit hard in that he's going to be in the slot. And so you're not often lining up with 2 wide receivers where the second one is inside. Somebody's got to be outside there. So I think there's room for somebody else to be 2.
And honestly, Jefferson is, to me, an older, slower, more polished version of Ayomanor, and I think Ayomanor is going to take that job eventually. But those are 2 outside receivers. Point is, Tyler Lockett's the second best player in that group.
Agreed.
By a pretty large
margin. That would
margin.
look for Ayomanor to be
right.
The one pushing to get highest fastest.
And here's the other thing that we've not talked about. If DK is as sort of well-cultured as a soccer announcer might say, he's got a well-cultured left foot. If he's as well-cultured as we think, he's going to be developing quickly. Having him learn from Lockett to play in that position, because people say Lockett's a slot guy, but actually he was not a heavy slot guy last year for Seattle. Jackson Smith and Jigba took most of his snaps from the slot, so Lockett actually got, I want to say it's 3/4 of his targets were from another position. So Lockett can do a lot of things, but I think DK is going to learn a lot from Lockett as a professional, as a route runner. Lockett's available a lot. I think that's a sneaky good signing for this team.
I do too. That's the guy I would have put down as my priority signing for after the draft, depending on what they did in the draft. So that they got him before the draft, was great.
Traylon Burks, they wouldn't comment on him, but I'm going to mention him here because they said, essentially, Chad Brinker said today, we are not going to pick up the 5th-year option, which, again, is as expected for Traylon Burks, but he is still on the roster. And it looks like if you go Ridley, Lockett, Jefferson, Ayomanor, DK Oliver, that could be your 6. Do you see is it Dowell? Is it Burks? Is there a 7th guy that you like a lot? Restrepo was signed. You can talk UDFAs if you want to now. So,
I mean, Restrepo has a chance of making it if he does the kind of things that he did at Miami. I mean, it's hard for him to get ahead of Lockett and DK as a slot guy, I would think, and he's very much a slot guy. I know he's going to be a super fan favorite, which is going to annoy me. But I think Colton Dowell's got a shot to stick around, if only as a practice squatter. I think Burks will be gone after he's healthy, and maybe before he has a chance to get hurt again. But maybe they'll carry him into camp. And they got to have him until he's healthy anyway, and he may not be healthy until halfway through camp.
So if we go with, especially on offense at skill positions, when you have Cam Ward, and what is your goal essentially? You want to be bigger, faster, better, right? Around the quarterback. I'm not going to go offensive line because I've put my hand on that burner too many times. They've tried to address it every offseason. Every offseason we say, well, it seems like they've done that. They invested maybe better this year with the 2 guys they brought in, but we thought that with Cushenberry, we thought that with Latham last year, and it didn't necessarily happen. So I'm going to stick with the receiving core, the tight ends, and the running backs. Bigger, faster, better. All 3 of these groups. If Gunnar, Helm, Chig, and Wiley are your 3 tight ends, you are bigger, faster, and maybe better. I'm not sure about better, but maybe. Spears, Pollard, Mullings, I think you are bigger, faster, and better. If you add Ayomanor, DK, Oliver, Jefferson, Lockett, Ridley, you are bigger, faster, better at that position than you were last year. In general, they're not the best position groups in the NFL by any stretch. But in general, the running backs, tight ends, and receivers around your rookie quarterback, all 3 of those position groups are bigger, faster, and better than they were last year, in my opinion.
I agree with you. But, I mean, one of these fan Twitter accounts, put out like the offensive personnel and said, who's stopping this? I mean, believe me, the league is not looking at the Tennessee offense and thinking, "Oh my God, I'm afraid of that." They're better, better than horrifically
31st
bad
in the NFL.
team last year. Yeah. So, and you don't know how fast a rookie quarterback comes along, and he could fall on his face. Could be Jaden Daniels. I wouldn't bet on it in a rookie season with an unproven coach, but we'll see. But don't I'd warn against going crazy and thinking that they're going to be Washington.
All right. Let me UDFAs. Any other names that you want to make? We'll have lots of time to watch these guys. Rookie camp, I believe, starts the 12th, right? Is that next Monday or 2 Mondays from now?
I think it's a little bit earlier than that. The 10th. I think the 10th might be the day we get to see them, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. I put out a rough depth chart yesterday, and I think the one guy who maybe has the most or the biggest chance, because it's the spot where the Titans are the thinnest, is Cam Horsley, defensive end, because they've got no ends after Sebastian Joseph Day. And they're still thin there. I haven't looked at any names that have come out today, but I'd continue to look at defensive line. They added 3, Cam Horsley, Devontae O'Malley, and Isaiah Rakes. O'Malley and Rakes look like defensive tackles, so that would put them behind Simmons and Abdullah, and Abdullah's no lock. So those 2 would be in a pool with Abdullah, O'Malley, and Rakes. But Horsley, I think, is the second end behind Sebastian Joseph Day right now.
We'll see those guys here coming up soon. Rookie camp is a little earlier this year, so we'll get to see them here again. I think it's about 2 weeks from now, so a little time to take a deep breath, and then it's just kind of camp after camp after camp after camp until actual training camp opens. But we'll see them coming up here in just a few minutes, or just a few weeks. Quickly, I do want to. We got some questions about this on our Saturday night play and our Saturday night get together. Special thanks, by the way, again to Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. You guys were spectacular. To you guys who showed up, thank you. To Paul and Nick and the rest of the guys who showed up to actually be a part of the event, thank you. Means a lot to me. Means a lot to the Our Kids Foundation. So just a lot of fun to see you guys and talk about a lot of stuff, including we got like 3 questions about Shedeur Sanders. And I it's not that I was frustrated with that happening in the moment, PK, but it's that I've gotten the only thing people are asking me about, that like they know I do this. They're my friends in my life. And they're like, "Oh man, what'd you think?" Nobody cares about who the Packers took in my life or who the Titans took in my life. They're just like, "Can you explain this Shedeur Sanders thing to me? Like, what's going on with this thing?" And every now and then there is a story that just sort of takes over an event, whether we like it or not. Not the least of which is helped by this prank phone call thing here. I'm just curious if you think there's more to this story than just that Cam Ward just isn't as good as people really truly realize, because even the media who didn't like him didn't have him in the 5th round. Most media had him at the worst, maybe in the 3rd round, worst case scenario. So I'm curious how you react to the television show that was the draft, because that's what that is. It is a TV show. And Mel Kiper, I imagine ESPN producers encouraging Mel Kiper to lean on his this weird shtick about how the league is all wrong and they don't know how to do quarterback evaluation and blah, 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 blah. I'm sure ESPN loved it and was totally fine with it. But it did seem to overshadow everything, the whole entire draft. And it doesn't really feel fair to the Titans and Cam Ward or any other players for that matter. Where are you at on this whole thing?
I think they actually put Kiper on pause a couple times with it. Like, all right, let's not talk about this for a little while. I think mostly he's not as good as people thought he was, and that the draft analysts, the draft analysts community didn't do a good enough job of finding out where he was valued. But also after a certain point, when you get into like, hey, this guy is a good value, we should take him, people were like, man, it's too big a hassle to deal with a guy who's labeled himself as legendary instead of ordinary. Well, a 4th round quarterback is not legendary.
Fifth round.
Yeah, but I mean, if I'm contemplating taking him in the 4th round, I need him to know that
Right.
he's going to come in and be an ordinary guy in my quarterback room until he proves otherwise, and that I'm not going to brand him as legendary. And that
Do you
his
think
father might be a huge pain in my ass, and it's not worth it.
You think Jimmy Haslam, Tennessee native Jimmy Haslam, is the one who ended up picking Shedeur Sanders, or did he pick Dylan Gabriel?
I don't think it. I would think that he probably had something to do with it. I mean, the Browns look really, really stupid. They've burned either a 5th round pick or a 3rd round pick because they're both not on the team, and a bad team that doesn't have a terrible roster, but you want to use your picks to the best of your ability. And when you're saying, hey, we're throwing away either a 3rd or a 5th here, as these guys battle to see which one makes our roster, it's not a smart approach. But I think there's way too much seeking some sort of rationale, because most of these guys are unwilling to say we missed on the true value of Shedeur Sanders. And God forbid reporters and analysts and draftniks say we missed. They'd much rather spend 5 minutes discussing the league missing on a guy than being self-reflective.
Yeah. And it's not the same as Washington selecting Robert Griffin and Kirk Cousins in the 1st and I think it was the 4th round, right? I mean, that was kind of like, what are you doing? What are you taking 2 quarterbacks for? It's not dumb on its face to draft 2 quarterbacks. Is it more about where they went in the draft?
Well, I mean, I think they needed multiple quarterbacks. Now it's weird to have 2 rookie quarterbacks, but it turned out that that was a good move for Washington. But they had room for both of them on their roster. The Browns don't have room for both of them on their roster, so the comparison to me ends right there. And I have zero interest in what Shedeur Sanders does until it comes time for roster cuts. I don't know. Are people going to breathlessly watch his practice throws against air from rookie minicamp? I'm not.
They will. We will not. I think Reese Davis, who I view as a broadcasting sort of one of the best in the business. I just think he's just very smooth, very polished, doesn't add too much, but when he does add it, he adds the right amount, and he does it generally very measured. And this was in the middle of like Mel Kiper getting really heated as he's getting picked. And I think Reese's point was just like, it doesn't matter if the NFL got it right or got it wrong. What matters is that Shedeur Sanders has to now deal with the situation he's been put in. And if he is truly legendary or great, then he's now got to handle the facts, which are that he got picked in the 5th round and is the 2nd quarterback on the team that took him. It's not about whether the Browns were right or the rest of the NFL was right or wrong, or that we're right or that Mel's right or that Paul's right or that I'm right. All that matters is that he is now in a situation where he's got to face all of this stuff. The story has happened, and you've got to you got to figure it out, and you got to figure it out without your dad insulating you from everything else around you. And that's what you got to go do. You got to go fly into the real world, and how he handles that is what's going to matter. And that it's all the hand wringing is kind of silly to me. I don't know.
It seems like from what I saw, he handled it pretty well in the moment. Like
Shedeur, you mean?
How he responded to it in the press conference and everything. Now he needs to show up and go work without an entourage, and again with humility in his press situations and in how he interacts with his teammates and with the team.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do from there. And I don't want to hear much about legendary. I wouldn't want to hear much about legendary if I'm the Browns or a Browns fan. Go show yourself to be legendary if you're convinced you are, but stop telling people.
Yeah. Barton says ESPN was showing highlights of, I'm assuming, of Shedeur while Cam was still on stage. In fact, they were showing highlights of Shedeur Sanders while Roger Goodell was walking to the stage to announce Cam Ward. And I gotta, again, I know Titans fans, you have to deal with this all the time. And Paul, you and I talk about this all the time. People in the press talk about this all the time. The NFL draft is a reality television show. Their job is to get ratings and to drive traffic. And unfortunately for Titans fans, when you are a younger franchise in a middle market or a small market for that matter, You're not going to get the same coverage as other teams, other franchises, other things, even if you're taking a quarterback at number 1, which is worthy of coverage. But the fact that Shador was the story and Mel Kiper's taking it very personally became the story and drove ratings. People were tuning in for that conflict, that tension, not to see, oh, well, what's Cam Ward do really well in Brian Callahan's offense? Like, that's not what people are tuning in to see, unfortunately, for the Titans. That's why you have a very good and healthy local media corps that's going to do that for you when he gets to camp here in a couple of weeks. But you got to remember that about this stuff. The Titans don't get on national TV because they hate the Titans. It's because the Cowboys get bigger numbers. And that's it. It's just it's a business decision. And unfortunately, the Titans had to go from watching Shador highlights while picking Cam Ward to a Travis Hunter trade literally while Cam Ward is still on the stage.
Yeah, well, I think that was the bigger thing, is that the Hunter trade happened right there and stole the Titans' thunder. And the Hunter trade was big news. And big news swallows news that has been known for months, or at least the better part of 3 weeks, or certainly since Tuesday when the Titans said, hey, we're staying put and we know who we're taking. So there's no intrigue there in terms of what's happening with this pick. And there becomes a lot of intrigue with Cleveland dealing out of number 2 to Jacksonville for Travis Hunter. That's a juicy story. I would have gone to that story if I was ESPN in a second, or NFL Network.
Barton, you say Kyle Brandt confronted it this morning on Good Morning Football. Are you talking about the Shador story or the lack of coverage for the Titans? I don't know.
He did segments on both, and he was very good. Oh,
really? Okay. Yeah, somebody addressed the lack of coverage for Cam Ward in the national media. I'm shocked by that. Kyle is a very observant dude, man. His delivery's not for everybody. Your mileage might vary on his delivery, but he's a very smart dude, and he does a good job looking at it. So,
well, at least he's not wearing mascara like his former partner.
Are you talking about Schrager?
Yeah. I mean, Schrager should be on the radio.
He's a decent reporter, though, right?
Oh, he's a very good reporter.
Okay, all right, good.
Very hard to look at on TV.
There you go. Cam Ward is perfect for the Titans because they are both always overlooked. There you go. It's a good way to wrap it up.
How is Cam Ward always overlooked? He was a huge story.
Well, no,
senior year. He's a Heisman finalist. Overlooked. I could find a lot of guys who were overlooked last year more than Cam Ward.
He was
it's a victim complex.
I totally disagree. With you on this. He was a 0-star recruit that was overlooked by both coaching staffs and college football.
He was a 0-star recruit because he did nothing in high school in an offense that allowed him to throw 5 times a game. Is that overlooked?
If you end up going to Incarnate Word, because Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Texas, TCU, Houston, all passed on you, did not offer you a scholarship, and didn't think you were good enough, and the recruiting services didn't think you were good enough, you were overlooked.
There were reasons not to like him.
Flat out.
There were reasons not to like him. He didn't do anything in high school.
Playing in a wing tee doesn't mean that people don't see. Look, I want to say that DK actually played with the kid at Wisconsin, Bart Houston, that was a 5-star recruit that played at De La Salle in a wing tee offense. Coaches will find you, and teams will find you, and the recruiting services will find you. They all overlooked Cam Ward. And then the transfer portal comes, and he goes to Washington State after putting up enormous numbers at Incarnate Word. Lots of college football teams overlooked him. So I don't disagree.
What happened? He got found. He's the number 1 pick in the draft. Poor guy, overlooked.
I don't think that's the case now, but I think the fact that it's the Titans that drafted him at number 1 means that you're not going to get the coverage you deserve. That's all. And that's fair. He did not get the coverage he deserves. So there you go. It's not wrong. Don't be attacking old William. He's not wrong. Very correct.
Coverage, smoverage. Go play, win.
I do agree that I watched less of the draft this year as a fan, I watched less of it because it's just turned into such a reality TV show that it's not as enjoyable. Like, show me the list of who you could have taken and when you took them, and then I'm a little bit more interested in it. So Barton says if anybody should be mad, it should be Cam, and it doesn't seem like he seems to give a shit. There you go. You cannot be more offended than the victim, quote unquote, of the situation.
Oh,
I know they try to. I agree with you, but if that person doesn't care at all, then you can't care either. So that's the rule. That's the
I like the rule, but I don't think people follow the rule.
There's an entire cottage industry of content, PK, around what you're talking about.
Well, it's more than a cottage industry. It's a mega industry.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a few of them headquartered here in Nashville. Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, never the victim. Always delivering 5-star content and never overlooked by you Nashvillians, because guess what? They win awards for being the best by you folks that use their products. Sinkers Beverages, 4-time liquor store of the year. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, the #1 barbecue in the city, as voted on by folks like you. So special thanks to all you guys who came out this weekend. It was awesome, huge success. Do you think the Titans are better today?
Of course. I added 9 players. How are they not better? This idea that somebody's worse after they add 9 players is silly.
On that note, tell everybody where they can find you and what you got coming up on the website.
Blake Benningfield's review of the new version of the Titans roster is up at paulkuharsky.com. My thoughts on Amy Adams-Strunk being the one who could screw this up and could very easily do so come November, December, January, is up at paulkuharsky.com. Tomorrow, something on this idea of what have we been talking about? This idea of love ball resurfacing and how it scares me. More about that at paulkuharsky.com.
You drafted a player with a torn ACL. Players all love ball. We're going to be big and fast, tough and fast.
Vic Beasley loved ball.
Having a lot of strange deja vu moments all over again. Jordan says grievance buys sneakers too, Braden. That's a good line, Jordan.
That is a good line.
That's 2 put together. I like that. All right, check out paulkuharsky.com. Go to Sinkers Beverages. Check out Shotgun Willie's Barbecue as well. Apologize for being late today, but had to get to that press conference. Of course, Nick and I will be back on Thursday. Lots of coverage across all the platforms here. We're into talking season now, PK. It's talking season. From now until the start of football.
All that draft stuff was talking season. Now we'll see a guy do a thing.
That's true. Eventually. And eventually it'll be rookies against professionals, not rookies against other rookies. So we'll see. All right. Thank you for hanging out and watching. For Paul, I'm Braden. We'll talk to you guys next time.